One.
You're listening to the 50,000 watt clear channel voice of news radio.
3, 2.
Hello, I'm Deborah Carter, host for Gaining a Voice. Part of the planning for a media campaign involves knowing the people you want to address and how you will address them. This is known as targeting your audience. To target your audience means that you have to find the best medium to reach the people you want to inform. Many organizations are best served by community media such as newsletters, community papers, and television. In this program, you'll see different types of community media and how they can help your group.
Many community groups feel they have to approach the mainstream media to gain attention for their message, but that may not be the best place to start.
We're a pretty tough sell for community organizations in general because community organizations by their very nature are very local. And we tend to be looking for a broader scope, a wider sweep.
A fair number of groups, community groups, are frustrated that they don't have a voice in the community. And we're finding a lot of times that they're coming to us basically asking for help in getting a stronger voice.
I mean, sometimes it's worthwhile trying to get an editorial in the New York Times. Other times it's worthwhile trying to reach people in churches. Other times it's worthwhile to have a demonstration, Otherwise it's worthwhile to set up your own press. I mean, there's no right answer.
There's no right answer as to how community groups reach their audience. The mainstream media are a tough sell. One place to start is to target your own neighborhood. Most urban centers have neighborhoods with their own media. One neighborhood's activities are covered in the Glebe Report.
If you live in this area, you're particularly interested in what would be happening or what would be in this paper because it would cover it perhaps to the extent that you would like to know about it, or it would tell you something that you wouldn't find in the larger media because they just wouldn't have be able to devote the space and the time to covering it. We see ourselves as grassroots, I think, and promoting what is of interest in a community. The kind of thing that couldn't be covered in a large media just because they couldn't take the time and devote the space to all the concerns that were involved in, say, one particular issue.
Community papers accept most articles submitted. They give members of community groups experience in writing about their issues and concerns in a friendly environment.
People will read that monthly community paper almost cover to cover because they know most of what's in there has some relevance to their lives, their neighborhood. Whereas a citywide paper, huge chunks of it are completely irrelevant to you. And I think how many people really read it thoroughly? They go for their special sections. So our ability to reach our target, which is the people in this neighborhood in this case, is far higher.
Local politicians use the community paper to maintain their profile in their neighborhood.
At really virtually no cost. It allows me to talk with my constituents about issues at the school board. And having read my column, I often find I get response when I'm meeting people on the street or in local stores.
So if we're doing something, a fundraiser, a special event, or we have some particular story that applies specifically to the Glebe, it's very much worth our while to try and get that story published in the Glebe Report or get an announcement in the Glebe Report, because community papers are read. They're very well read. And for accessing the people in our immediate neighborhood, for the center's immediate neighborhood, I think it's the best tool available.
Like many other community papers, the Glebe Report is written, produced, and distributed by volunteers who want to contribute to the quality of life in their neighborhoods.
This paper has become a part of this community's everyday life, and it involves itself in a way that makes the people in the community the main focus of the paper.
Community papers, by their very nature, are an ideal vehicle to start a media campaign because they target a specific audience.
Ready on one.
Well, if you deny
Go three. Stand by for her key. Ready on two.
Another vehicle to reach your audience is to use the television facilities provided by most cable companies. Many groups use community television to discuss in-depth issues that the mainstream media do not have time for.
It's really okay if you don't know anything about producing a television show. That's what Rogers is here for. That's what the community channel is mandated to do, is to produce programming for the community, by the community. But in order to do that, we've created a process where we train you. We provide you with the resources, whether they be staff or volunteer, to help your production happen. You don't have to do it all, and nor do we ask that you do it all. It's a team effort, television production, and you can expect when you walk in to have lots of help.
Hello, welcome to Cross Cultures. My name is Andrew Cardozo. Our show today is about
Cross Cultures is a monthly community program that raises awareness of Canada's multicultural landscape.
Is there a wrong way?
Well, I think in many ways we're getting this type of show is perhaps cutting edge for community programming, because in the past community programming has been more sort of soft information about what's happening in the community, what events are happening, what people are doing. What we're dealing with are more some of the cut and thrust ideas, and they're really quite similar to some of the issues that you will see being dealt with in the major networks.
Ready on three. Take three.
Community television provides in-depth information to people who are already interested in the event or issue of a group or association.
Okay. I really stress with different groups is to not forget us and not wait until you have to have a monthly show. There's so many other ways that you can get your message across on the community channel. You don't have to have your own show to do it. And I really challenge groups to get out there and try to break the barriers between the ethnic and the mainstream programming and get involved in issues programming. For example, if you're with a Somalian community, you don't need your own show to talk about racial problems in your neighborhood. Why not propose to come in and do a 3-part controversial call-in series with us and get the groups on that are involved and let's do it. You don't have to stay for 15 years. You can just do 3 shows and they can be relevant to your community and really serve a purpose. And people won't forget for a long time.
Villa Marconi is a seniors facility being developed by the Italian community of Ottawa. In its efforts to raise funds, Villa Marconi uses extensively the different community media.
Okay.
Buonasera gentili telespettatori, ci troviamo qui a Villa Marconi.
We are using every week we avail the opportunity to Tele 30, which is an Italian program, which is institutionalized here with the help of Rogers Television. And we have 1 hour. They have 1 hour every week, and we have about 10 minutes. We talk about Villa Marconi. We interview people, and it is quite. They help us a lot, and we learn time by time, and it is going to be quite. It is going quite well.
By targeting their audience, Villa Marconi has managed to gain support for the activities and events which they sponsor. The more support gained for these events, the more funding they'll have to accomplish their goals. Another community media used by Villa Marconi is the local Italian newspaper.
We go every week on the Oro di Ottawa, which is the local newspaper in Italian. We prepare an article every week, and we try to reach also outside the Italian community with the French and the English newspaper.
The publicity committee meets on a regular basis to plan out which media they're going to target and why.
The Clarion and News West, etc. Elaine, maybe if you can fill us in on what's happening.
In the Clarion, we had talked about publishing the newsletter. And for 55 Plus magazine, there's a woman that wants to come and tour Villa Marconi.
What did you have here on the last part? You say
As part of their media campaign, Villa Marconi produced a public service announcement which is aired regularly on commercial and community television. Villa Marconi has been a dream in the making for a long time. To make this dream come true, the community media has been instrumental in targeting the right audience in its fundraising efforts. After many years and much effort, this dream is becoming a reality. Rural communities have their own media that focus on local concerns. Interval House, a women's shelter in Lanark County, has been publishing a column in the local papers about spousal abuse to try to change attitudes towards abused women.
The way that we use the media the most is I write a weekly column, or I see that a weekly column is written, and that goes in the local weekly newspapers. We have 5 of them in Lanark County, and most of them printed.
The Carleton Place Canadian is one of the papers that prints columns written by Interval House.
We don't like to be called weeklies anymore. We like to be called community papers, and I think that's a big change in itself. We've also evolved to the point where we are now solely focused on news, and I think we've become much more controversial than the newspaper of yesteryear, which was primarily a social and personal news sort of paper with a little bit of hard news thrown in once in a while. We try as much as we can to open up our news pages with the space limitations to all community organizations and give them an opportunity to produce either their own column or have us produce a story related to their activities. And I think that we do much more of that, obviously, than they do in the larger centers where the restrictions are much more pronounced. So we do have the space, we do have the ability to give community organizations a voice.
This whole idea that women needed shelter from abusive husbands, there was a lack of belief that men were abusive to their wives, or that if they were, well then surely the woman deserved it. And so that was what we were dealing with initially. I would say that belief has probably turned around, almost totally now. I would say that we have strong community support and a deep interest in what happens at our shelter.
The different linguistic communities of Canada have their own newspapers that serve their needs. ECO Latino is a bilingual monthly paper which addresses issues and concerns of the Hispanic community in Ontario and across Canada.
Canadians don't know that we exist, that the Hispanic Canadian community exists here in this society. Although we are about over 500,000 people in Canada, In Ottawa, we are over 30,000 people right now, and we're growing. We needed to be visible. We needed to encourage each other to participate in this society. We get the articles from many people, from people that are Latin Americans, that in their country they were, before they came to Canada, they were writers, they were poets, and engineers, doctors, and you name it.
The computer has made it easier for people like Jaime to publish a paper for his target audience. Papers like ECO Latino can now compete in quality and content with the bigger mainstream papers.
So when I print the article in the newspaper, the whole community, I very few Latin Americans or Hispanics or people that are Hispanic don't read the newspaper right now. The newspaper, just everybody is interested in the newspaper. So it's a good source of information. All Latin Americans write in Spanish, Canadians and other communities reading in Spanish, or Latin Americans writing in English, or Canadian in English. So it's an interchange of ideas, and it's becoming very, very good for the newspaper, for the community, for integration, for understanding for everybody. And the fact that I started doing these articles in English gave access to everybody, the Africans, the Jamaicans, the Filipinos, the Somalians, everybody has access to the newspaper.
The computer not only makes it easier to have your own newspaper and to produce newsletters, but add a modem and it can provide you with access to the internet.
And so we will quote then with a note.
The internet is used by groups to send and receive new information, as well as responses to their message.
We could stick it in there for sure, what is happening today with the internet and with the way people are communicating is revolutionary, is changing fundamentally how you and I communicate, how organizations such as Greenpeace or any other advocacy organization, nonprofit, NGO organization communicates with its supporters, with its sympathizers.
We want to reach the largest possible audience, and what we found is that we can reach an audience of activists on the internet. More and more people have internet accounts and are interested in learning information. And we've actually set up a system that allows people to automatically send faxes to 7 federal cabinet ministers about the need to embargo Nigerian oil. And we've only had the system set up for a couple of days, and we've already had about 50 people use it. So there's a huge potential to mobilize people.
There are various groups that have taken advantage of the internet as a communications tool, both individuals who are trying to fight hate crimes and hate literature, and those who are, I guess you could say, passing out that information, are both duking it out in cyberspace, so to speak. And these are groups who are vying for public opinion.
People using the internet care about issues. They care about human rights, they care about the environment, they care about the economy. Just because they're online doesn't mean they should be ignored as a community of people that can be approached and that you can communicate your message to.
Third World Players present the 8th part of a literary portrait of Cuba.
The poet Julián del Casal, having lost his mother at birth,
while the internet allows groups to send messages when needed, community radio provides a regular forum for groups to target their audience.
In honor of his mother.
While some community stations are organized by local groups, Most are based on university or college campuses. CKCU is one of dozens of radio stations operating from a campus.
We broadcast in English, French, Spanish, Urdu, Hindi, and a lot of the Creoles, for example, Haitian Creole, Jamaican Creole, or what used to be called Patois, and so on.
Program directors at community radio stations are eager to help community groups get on the air.
If you wanted to start your own program, then there's a list of criteria that you have to include in a proposal, and that would include the audience size, the mandate, the process, the content of the show, and why you'd like to do it and how you would go about doing it. And then we'd sort of look at whether or not there was another show of that type on our station or other stations, and whether it would fit with our programming, whether we have room for it, which is usually a problem because we've been around for 20 years, so we don't have a lot of space for new shows. A lot of groups just don't, for whatever reason, get a lot of exposure on the media, like the sort of generally disadvantaged groups, women, visible minorities, or whatever. That's what we're here for, basically, is to provide a forum for those groups.
As more and more channels are added to our televisions and radios, these channels are becoming more and more specialized in targeting their audience. CFMT is one such station which knows this and takes advantage of it.
1, tag, 3, stand by, 16, no keys.
Well, because of who we are, a multilingual station, it's essential for us to choose professionals, journalists, and television broadcasters who know the community, who understand the community, and speak the language of the communities. Therefore, I'd say that we're at an advantage where we're in a situation of broadcasting to 15 languages. The actual associate producers are part of that community.
지난 85년과 87년 두 차례 있었지만 두 사건 모두 탑승객의 시신과 기체 잔해.
We feel we have a responsibility to inform people that are now Canadian citizens who are still connected to their community through their language. We feel we have a need and a responsibility to inform them about life in Canada and the issues that face all Canadians.
We often, sometimes will even give a community a high-8 camera to shoot visually an event or an event that they'd like to promote if they can do that. We will not only, put it in writing on the air, we'll actually show clips of that.
Yeah, I don't know at this
so
point
especially in our
be,
weekly
but,
programs,
you just
we have a segment at the end of the show that consists of at least a minute and a half of public service announcements, which is not only visually in the written form, it's supported by voiceover as well as clips from the actual event.
Dissolve and cue them, please. Stand by camera 7, stand by
Stand by
Nancy.
pack.
It's clear that each medium has its own audience. For you to get your message across, you have to know who that audience is and how you can shape your message for that audience.
Gaining media attention is a slow process requiring patience, determination, planning, and flexibility. You have to know who your message is for and which medium will best reach that audience. But what follows once you have the media's attention? Are there ways of interacting with journalists that will ensure your message remains clear? Are there things you should or shouldn't say during a media interview? And what happens when the media misinterprets your message? These are some of the questions which will be addressed in future programs. For Gaining a Voice, I'm Deborah Carter.